Guitars and Ukuleles. This video is about rounding over the bindings to get ready for finishing. If I get down low, you can see how the binding is pretty much a right angle, and we want to round that over as much as we can. So the reason why we bevel the binding, there's two reasons. One is for comfort, because it's like a little arm bevel. It doesn't hurt your arm. The second and most important reason, which should be the first reason, but I didn't do it in that order, is because lacquer will break off a right angle edge way easier than a curved edge. It has adhesion problems with any sharp edge, and that goes with the sound hole. That's why we curve this around. And there's no sharp edges really. Probably the sharpest edge would be this heel area and also here, but we curve all these parts around too. It doesn't have to be quite as much as this, but it's a good policy to curve it over as much as you can. So in order to do that, I'm going to need a few things, but the first thing I do is this. So this is all a right angle here, and I have to deal with where the neck and fingerboard go. So this is going on here. I can just hold this by hand. You can either use a block, and this is, I'll show a close-up of this later, but so that's a block, or you can use a scraper, get in there. It doesn't have to be right up in the edge, but and again, I'll come back in and show you how much I'm sanding off, scraping off. I tend to use both methods, block and scraping. You'll see all that. Okay, so if you look here, you can see the transition from curved, which is just this much at the moment, to this sharp edge. And that sharp edge is needed because if you curve the binding all the way in, you'll have this gap right in here, and it will look bad. So you can see I've gone right up to the edge. You can leave it like just a little bit, like 1/32 or something. But that takes care of that, and so we'll get on to the next part. So on this side I'm going to be scraping most of this down. This is usually the first part that I do, and by part I mean with a scraper. It's the first tool. It makes everything go a lot easier. I'll continue this around and then show you a side profile so you can see what I'm getting at. Okay, so if I go here, there, that's still at a right angle. And then if I turn this round, you can see that I've scraped a nice even curve into it. And what I do is, it kind of depends on the size of the curve, depends on the width of your binding, but you go up to the purfling and you leave the purfling, because if you scrape into that, it will widen the white, which you don't want to do. You want the purfling to be even, because the eye catches it. And so that's kind of, and obviously I've stopped scraping about here. So that's about what I do with a scraper all the way around, and then I'll get a better shot of this. You can see that curving around. And that's done. Where my thumb is here isn't done yet, but you'll be able to see this curved around. Sorry about the handheld stuff, but it's kind of the only way to get this. So I'll do the rest all around and then show you the next step. Please subscribe if you enjoy these kind of videos, and hit the like button and the bell if you want to get notifications when I release a new video. And let me know what you want to hear about in the comments. I like sort of catering to whatever people want to hear about or learn about, whatever. Thank you very much. Bye. So I've scraped the perimeter, and I was careful to, pay attention to where this remains a right angle, and it's fairly good. What I forgot to mention was, if I was using curly koa or curly maple binding, something like that, anything figured really, or kind of a I don't know, a gnarly bit of whatever wood, whatever wood sounds like something from Narnia. I would probably not scrape it. I would just skip straight to this next step, which is just sanding it. Just because, if you're scraping figured wood, it can corrugate. So here's a close-up. This is just with some 80 grit, some dirty 80 grit. And we're just cleaning it up, making it look nice. So the next step is you can either use more 80 or 120, something like that. And I just come around and make sure that the curve is nice. And doing this, you can feel any inconsistency. So that's feeling really nice now, and you might be able to see that curve. And if I compare it to this area, see how that's kind of chattery? So that's the difference. And so this nice area, you just keep using your fingers to take it up to about 220. So after I've scraped, if I've scraped and I've done the quick initial blocking of sandpaper and given it some sort of 80 or 120 grit just to even out the surface of any chatter marks and stuff. I'll come in with some 180 and I will curve this kind of around. This is stick it paper, so it's you usually adhere this to a block or something, but if you put this back on itself, it creates a nice little sanding tool. And I curve this around like that, and then I can really get in and get a perfect transition or radius in the binding, and that's just perfectly smooth. There's not going to be any weird line here where you can feel the transition. It's always going to be really nice. And then you can come back in with 400 just to final clean up, and then you're ready for spraying. That's perfect. So this would be a point where the transition isn't as even as it should be. Just here you can see, just with the strong light above, this line is quite harsh, and that indicates that you can feel that. But here you can see it's rounding over a lot more naturally, and then it goes sharp about there. You can see that's curving over nicely, and then it's sharp here. So don't do it that way. Do it that way. So I do this well, it's kind of another video, but I do this on this particular instrument. There's PowerShell purfling, top purfling. I'll do this before I sand the top with a random orbital sander. Let's check out the other video specifically on power purfling, but then I'll come back in and re-hit this with 220 grit sandpaper, just with my fingers, and that will, then I can just really make sure that this transition is perfect and that there's no kind of edge, sort of an obvious step. It's a bit like the edge of the fingerboard, like here. You want this transition to be seamless. Like if you close your eyes, you just don't want to feel this line. It's a bit like that. And it's quite easy to do. And you know, if you're using curly koa or maple, you just use a block with sandpaper and not a scraper, and you'll be good.